Welcome back to Late Night Lately. I'm your host, Chad White. If you didn't know, this is the premier late night podcast for the website, cpluscomedy.com. All right, we have a monologue. Let's get to it. The comic strip Dilbert has been dropped from newspapers across the country due to creator Scott Adams' racist comments about how white people should stay away from black people, which is strange considering nobody wanted to be near Scott Adams in the first place. Is anyone clamoring to be with the same mediocre white guy who worked in a mediocre workplace, then created a comic strip about a mediocre white guy in a semi-wacky workplace? He's been through 2 divorces. Even his ex-wives were looking to get away from him. And no wonder, the guy's a trained hypnotist. The only person looking to back him up is none other than Twitter's serial killer and guy who names his babies by sneezing and pounding on the keyboard, Elon Musk. It's a nice long one for you. The White House recently set a 30-day deadline for removing TikTok from federal devices due to concerns about Chinese surveillance, leaving the only way China can spy on government workers is that little bug Donald Trump left in the Oval Office. It says a picture of a hamburger or something, so hopefully I put a Big Mac right here. You're missing if you're not watching the video. You're really missing out. Marvel's Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania officially claims the company's worst box office drop since The Eternals, having lost 69% of its revenue in the second weekend. And funnily enough, Ant-Man also loses 69% of something else when he shrinks down. I like that one. That's a fun one. That's right. Ant-Man 3 has had the worst second weekend box office performance in Marvel history, leaving the writer surprised about bad reviews. But at least he can finally take a stab at directing the next DC tentpole. It says James Gunn photo in the margins. I'm going to tell you all the machinations of this. And finally, AMC Theaters is set to sell packaged versions of its popcorn in Walmart stores just in time for the Oscars. If you really want to get the theater experience at home, Walmart is also bundling in teenagers making out loudly, babies that were brought into R-rated movies, soda that you pour directly onto the floor, and that guy wearing a trench coat who came to see Magic Mike XXL by himself. Now, the reason I laugh so hard at teenagers making out loudly is because when I wrote that in my head, all I saw was just like teenagers and like kissing the just so loud. That's a monologue. All right, let's move on to This Week in Late Night. This Week in Late Night. A big week. Everybody's back. We can finally do a show again. I took a week off because there are too many people off, and I just, quite frankly, needed to take a week off because I didn't want to make up an episode out of nowhere. And now I sound better because the mic is near my face. When I'm delivering those monologue jokes in quotes, I was just thinking I gotta deliver these jokes instead of delivering directly to the mic, but who knows how it sounds now? I mean, I can see on the waveforms it sounds way different. True or false, I had to restart the episode because I delivered those jokes and I messed one up. I messed up the very first joke. True. And I did some placement with my notes and moved the notes under the camera so it looks like I'm looking in the camera. We're looking directly to the camera instead of looking off screen. All right, let's get into it. This Week in Late Night, we have a brand new guest host, obviously, for The Daily Show. It's Hasan Minhaj. Hasan Minhaj. He recently, in the last couple of years, took to interviews to talk about his last name and how it's Minhaj, not Minaj. That's how people have been. That's how people have been pronouncing it. That's what I was gonna say. Oh my god, that wasn't meant to be a joke. It was just I just said it by accident. People. But it sounds like I'm making fun of his name. I wasn't. Hasan comes, hosting The Daily Show for a week, returns to his roots where he originally was, and that's where people got his name, unless you watch stand-up, which I think more people came to a stand-up after the fact. Also, I think he released Homecoming King. That was his first one when he left The Daily Show. He returns to The Daily Show, and the first thing he did on Monday was get into an argument with Ronnie Chang about being Asian. It was a great piece of comedy in the monologue where the two of them just had a back and forth about how Ronnie Chang made a comment about Rishi. Is it Rishi Sunak? Who is the I think it's Rishi Sunak. Rishi Sinek. I like, it's crazy how much news I know and how much I retain. It is in fact Rishi Sunak, who is the British Prime Minister right now, and how he's not Asian, even though he's Indian, which means he is technically Asian. And Hasan and Ronnie have a great conversation about that, a great back and forth, which is hilarious. But then the next thing that happens, in that same episode, Hasan has an interview with Giannis Antetokounmpo. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Look at me, I'm Chuck and Shaq from inside the NBA. I can barely pronounce something, and it's a whole bit of comedy. I say that like it's a joke, but I think that show's very funny. And I think those guys are very good at what they do. I mean, in fact, we'll get into this right now. So he had a conversation with Giannis, and the last bit of the conversation was how Giannis is so nice and so genuine, and he never talks smack about people. And Hasan wrote a bunch of, Hasan and the team of writers at The Daily Show wrote some zingers, some burns that Giannis can use against LeBron and Kevin Durant and other big name NBA stars. It's very windy outside, so if you do hear like creaking, the wind is pushing against my balcony door. And it was, I think, in fact, it was a great interview, just led by a great interviewer, and he has a great person to talk to, and it was a very funny bit. All right, no one thinks anything of it. The next day, Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp over there at Fox Sports is pardon the no, that's not ESPN. Oh no! What is the show that Skip and Shannon is called? I think it might be called Skip and Shannon. Skip and Shannon Undisputed. Jesus, I know Rishi Sunak though, so that's good. Skip and Shannon Undisputed. Skip Bayless brings out for a segment the Giannis interview, but he doesn't include the interview portion. He only includes the zinger section, the burn section, and then that's it. There's no context around it, and he looks down on Giannis. He's like, Giannis, why are you doing this? Why are you talking bad about these other people? You should look at their numbers and things of that nature. But Hasan used that to his benefit when he takes to something that I wish The Daily Show would do more often, because I do think that with Trevor, these were great, the behind the scenes stuff. But now that we have these new guest hosts, I would love to see their takes on things. I mean, because I can only guess that they're talking to the audience. But Hasan got a after the cut for the on the Daily Show's YouTube channel. So he got a 6-minute segment talking about how Skip Bayless and the and just the general idea, which I hate this term, of the media, take things out of context and blow it up and try to essentially attack the target for no good reason, which is something that, when it comes to, let's start in the bigger portion of the quote unquote media, where they take these things out of context. I've seen it in late night. I've seen it in sports analysis. I've seen it in the regular news. It's just something that's easy to say, here's a quick sound clip, and let me push this out, and then so we can have a nice 5-minute segment on it, so we can get the base just riled up. It's something that Fox News is really, really good at. But in terms of them and other conservative sources, they're able to contort that into something else and take the meaning just out of proportion. But again, I'm talking about the whole of the quote unquote media. I sound like a Alex Jones or like one of these other jackasses who are like the media. Which does not make me feel good to be compared to that red-faced ogre. You wish he was an ogre. But I mean, so that's the larger context of what an outlet does. Now the thing in terms of sports commentators, or sports analysis rather, not sports commentators, because those are two different things, but sports analysts, someone who goes on to get up on ESPN, or someone who goes or the guys at the Inside the NBA, or just the people at MLB Network who host a show, which MLB Network's off of YouTube TV, so I don't know what shows are on there. MLB Tonight, can't watch. Obviously they need something to talk about. When you have a show, even something as small and as worthless as Late Night Lately, or any of the other bullcrap shows that I host on this network, this platform, it really makes it easier for you to be able to go, this is what I need, this is what I can talk about because I know this much about this, I know everything about this, as opposed to sitting down and knowing the facts to everything and then delivering upon those facts, and it's something that I think, so take Fox News out of the equation and let's just focus again on sports. A lot of these shows, and particularly on going from the top echelon of ESPN all the way down to the bottom tier of CBS Sports, Fox Sports, and the rest, anything that's not a dedicated singular sports show. Anything on Good Morning Football, they're gonna, when they talk about something, a story like that, they have 4 talking heads, sometimes 5 or 6, and then they can all like cover that one topic and tie it into the larger picture, or if they need to, or just cover that one topic and cover everything perfectly. But in terms of something like Undisputed, where they have or Get Up, or Stephen A's show, First Take, where they have all of these wide-ranging topics to hit, and they have an hour show to do it, or however long Undisputed is. It's gonna be those morons, mostly men, just yelling at each other and screaming, and that is like conversation. It doesn't make for, it's not a good representation of how analysts, journalists, people who talk for a living should be. It shouldn't be a something where you just bowl through half of a topic when 50% is laying on there on the cutting room floor. So all that to say is Skip Bayless and Colin not Hayworth who's it? The rest of everybody who's like one of those people are just kind of annoying and stupid. Take that. Next up, Michael B. Jordan and Jimmy Kimmel's moms are friends. Michael B. Jordan stopped by Jimmy Kimmel Live to talk about Creed 3 and directing and his new underwear ad. And his mom was there, and Jimmy Kimmel's mom was there, and they were friends way before Jimmy and Michael even knew each other. Whoever calls him Michael. If I was friends with Michael B. Jordan, I'd be like, Michael, Mike. Probably punch me in the face. And then same thing on Jimmy Kimmel. Courtney Cox and Jimmy Kimmel did, and this, and I mean, all right, hold on, I'll finish the sentence. Jimmy Kimmel and Courtney Cox did. Jimmy Kimmel had a Jimmy Fallon moment, and they had a little extreme indoor balloon toss battle thing. Now, this is something that really stood out to me, because when I watched it, it just seemed so anti-Kimmel. This just seems like something he normally doesn't do. Like for Kimmel, you usually see pranks, usually see live witness news, you see the belly flop contest. But this, I'm pointing to the stream, this extreme stream, the YouTube page. What? I'm pointing to the stream. I love that YouTube stream, Jimmy Kimmel Live. My other favorite YouTube stream is CBS Sunday Morning. What else is in my related videos, suggested videos? I love my favorite other stream is The Daily Show, Late Night with Seth Meyers. Anyway, I'll stop. But this one stood out to me in particular because, again, it's so anti-Jimmy Kimmel. But when you go on to youtube.com, to watch, like you don't know what that is. Like when you go to YouTube to watch this clip, it only has 54,000 views. And it has the making of something that Fallon would put out, or even Corden's early years would put out, and it would have 10 million views in week one, or day two, whereas you have a Friends, like somebody from Friends, doing a stupid, silly thing, playing a stupid, silly game with the host of a popular late night show. And it's all commentated on by the second guest, who is a big time comedy actor who is also promoting a show, a show with or movie. I don't know what History of the World Part 2 is, what medium it is, but also promoting something, a project from Mel Brooks. But it only has 54,000 views at the time of this, which is crazy to me. And it's pretty funny. A little long for my taste. Speaking of the same show, Ike Barinholtz comes by to talk to Kimmel about on the same set as the balloon fight thing, about winning Celebrity Jeopardy and working with Mel Brooks, which is a great little interview. Very fun. Prince Harry showed up on the Late Show with Stephen Colbert, but it wasn't in the fashion that I thought it was going to be. I think I mentioned last week how much I love extra online things, or last episode, how much I love extra online things. But the problem is when the online thing becomes the main segment for the show, that's an issue for the show, because it really paints that the guest was only there for a couple of minutes and this is all they had. So Prince Harry shows up to the Late Show, and he's only taking the Colbert questionnaire, which is a series of rapid fire questions. And you can tell this is the first time I've ever seen the questionnaire, but it's a series of rapid fire questions to Harry. Now this is the thing. Again, I didn't think I knew that they did this on television, but he just asked Harry questions like aisle or window on the airplane and things of that nature, things that are just so cursory that it's like just kind of throwaway, which I mean to them it might not be throwaway. This might be all the time they had, and they might have been like, hey, let's ask him about his book, let's ask him about how his penis got a frostbite, his frozen penis, or freeness, I guess. I don't know how his penis got frostbite on it, or how about how they have to move out of the house that right, they have to move out of their house, right? Hold on. Prince Harry and Meghan move. Let's see. They have to vacate their UK home, Frogmore Cottage. So it's I thought something like that was going to come up, but they just had a handful of minutes with him apparently. But it's still fascinating to see royal or true royalty pop by again. I mean, you don't have to like them. I just think this is interesting. We still have we have royalty, and then they do this. Now, continuing on with Colbert, he ended the I don't know if Thursday is his last episode, but the Thursday episode, the episode involved a regular monologue and then a second desk piece. But then he spent the rest of the show. He went to Amblin Entertainment, which is Steven Spielberg's production company, to have a career expansive conversation with the director. And it's so, I love it when late night shows do this, when they go out of their comfort zones. And obviously they can't do this all the time, but when they leave their comfort zones and have these career spanning, have these long conversations with one person or a cast or whomever or whatever it is. It was so fascinating to see. I think he also mentioned that it was Spielberg's first late night interview. So that is just a sensational thing that you can see and watch all these different clips. I kind of wish they would just put everything into one big segment, which I'm sure that they would repackage later at some point. But it is so cool to see Spielberg come out and talk about everything that he's done in the past couple of years. And then John Williams shows up. He says E.T. is his perfect movie, and everything like that. It was great. I can only imagine that the audience of that episode was sitting there. I mean, because there were barely any laughs, and which doesn't matter in the long run. But I can only imagine that they were sitting there like, oh, I can't wait. Like maybe we'll get Michelle Yeoh. Oh, she was here yesterday. Okay, well maybe you'll get Robert De Niro. Maybe we'll get somebody good. And then they go to the show and it's all pre-taped segments. I mean, it's a good pre-tape segment, but nonetheless, I want to continue on with Colbert in a second, but after that, now finally, Hasan tells a long story about crypto grifters. He does a nice segment. It's called "Long Story Short" about crypto grifters, and then he in this segment he talks about celebrities who invested into like companies like FTX and that ended up losing a crap ton of money, and they tried to convince regular people like you and I to do the same thing, and then and it talks about other people who were in the crypto world and stuff like that. But after that, he has a nice lengthy discussion with Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary, who is one of the investors of FTX, the crypto company that went down. It's 34 minutes long, but obviously in the show they had to cut it down to 8 or 10 minutes. But the full interview is on YouTube, and this goes into something that the Daily Show does that I like in particular, and sometimes Kimmel does it, and sometimes Fallon does it, and sometimes sometimes the other shows do it, where they have these extended interviews, and we get to see a little bit more of the conversation and to see where it comes from and see where it's going, and it's all so fascinating to watch. I have to find a new word, but it's all so fascinating to watch, and in the end, I really think it does work in their favor, especially for something like Kevin O'Leary. It's like Hasan was trying to, I mean, the word is confront, and so I guess I'll go with it. I'll use it. The word's confront, and I'll go with it. He's confronting Kevin O'Leary, who I quite frankly comes in to defend himself, not with data, but he does have enough knowledge of how money works. Obviously, look at him. He's Kevin O'Leary. He's also a guy, I saw an interview with him years ago, or a video with him on CNBC that said, he was like, if you want to make a lot of money, or have a lot of money, have a lot of extra cash or something like that, sell your car. You don't need to have a car to get around. And I just thought, you live in New York. You live in New York. Of course you don't need a car to get around there. You live in Manhattan. You're a train ride away from Cronuts. Anyway, but he like this interview is something that I think a lot of people in his position, and then let's make it political. A lot of people on the right, when they're invited to shows like The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and let's go back to Colbert when Colbert talks to Spielberg, a person who doesn't normally come to late night or ever, if at all. It's something when you can have a long range conversation and put words to meaning to words or meaning to projects that you've been putting out, or truly just try to back up something you've been saying is kind of one of the more adult things about it. I mean, not everything, again, this is late night where it's built around comedy, but not everything has to be a joke. Well, Colbert didn't force any jokes when they were not necessary when he was talking to Spielberg. Hasan, when he did something that Colbert did when Ted Cruz came on The Late Show early on in that show, they showed a clip on The Daily Show of Kevin O'Leary essentially eviscerating people who come on Shark Tank without any knowledge of what they're doing. And then the last clip was particularly brutal, and the audience just started booing him. People in the audience, not the entire audience, but the audience just started booing him, and people in the audience started booing him. And Hasan goes, "Hey, don't boo him. We're trying to have a conversation." And then Kevin tries to prove it. I'm a big boy. He goes, I can handle it. But I think the overall conversation is really good, and I do think that Kevin, he's a smart guy and he carries himself well. And Hasan is just as good, and Colbert is the same. It is so great to see these conversations be done on things that are typically reserved for fodder. 7-minute segments where an A-list and an A-list guest comes in, and then like a B-list follow up. An A guest comes in, then a B guest follow up, and then we do music or we do stand up, and then we head out. And but when we open up to this type of dialogue, we can have more expansive conversations. So that takes me into the topic for the week, which there's no time for essentially. So this 30-minute show, The Problem with Jon Stewart return, and it's a show that is on Apple TV Plus. I was going to say AMC, on Apple TV Plus, and I think I saw somewhere it is the lowest rated late night show, which I'm not trying to slam it or anything, but it happens to be the lowest rated late night show. Now that being said, they have podcast clips that they upload to their YouTube channel that get they do better, quite frankly, way better than like the week of the James Corden's show, the Late Late Show, or like the week of Fallon, and sadly the week of Seth Meyers. And so it returned. I decided to watch it. Oh, and then what's his name? John Oliver came back too. I don't know if I talked. It was great. They talked about artificial intelligence this week, I believe. Classic John Oliver, whatever. Anyway, I want to talk about Stewart. So the Problem with Jon Stewart debuted last year, or the fall of 2 years ago. To like 4 episodes, and then they came back the next year around this time with 4 more episodes, and it seems that they're continuing on that trend. There's something to the way they're releasing the show that works in its favor. It does need to have more. If they're going to do kind of like quarterly, they should do quarterly releases. Or quarterly seasons rather. They called this season 2 part 2. Which is a way for Apple to pay him less and the writers less. I know how it works. I know how those things work. And I think that they need to bump up the output, because this show, if you take John Oliver's show Last Week Tonight, and if you take a closer look from Late Night with Seth Meyers, and Meanwhile from Colbert. Those are all segments or shows that cover one topic, and then they go in on it really hard. And so add Problem with Jon Stewart to that situation, and I think he does a very similar and admirable yet different job compared to those other, I was going to say contemporaries, but I think that's the word, contemporaries. When I watched the show, I watched the first episode, and it wasn't really working for me. And I would pop my head in every so often. And I really think that, what am I trying to say? The episode I watched today for season 2, part 2 was about guns, and the things that worked really well. The interview he had with Oklahoma State Senator Nathan Dahm was, I think it did its job. It was very. It was good. If you didn't get enraged by how this Oklahoma State senator is defending having guns everywhere and 50,000 deaths and such, then I don't know what's wrong with you. But I think the things that don't work, and then the panel works too. So here's how the show's format goes. It goes a kind of a monologue thing, then a panel, and then some type of long form piece or interview. I think the panel and the interview are just leagues ahead of what the monologue is. The monologue is kind of the ramblings of an old guy. I don't know if there are jokes in there. It doesn't really pay off, and it's not really fun to watch. But when he moves on to the panel and they have these condensed conversations involving one or two or three other people, it works really well. Things kind of move along because he's facilitating conversation, and it's like it feels like news Comic-Con, NewsCon. So this interview with Nathan Dahm in particular, John is, I mean, it's something that I know his fans, his fans who I can only determine love going to Reddit, love Rick and Morty, and are atheists, and proud of it. His fans are something like this is something that they enjoy, and this was a fantastic interview, and it really stands out from what everyone, with the exception of Hasan did this week and what Colbert did this week, but from what everyone does in general is something. It's like, and it's what he perfected, what Jon Stewart perfected on the Daily Show, is this kind of journalism, this interview style where there are facts, where there are facts presented and they're able to be backed up, and he's able to roundabout get the person talking, the person he's interviewing, and to talk about the issue at hand and get them to kind of agree with what he's saying. And then, I mean, and he does something that, you know, you don't really see when you watch CBS News or ABC or NBC or CNN or MSNBC. I'll just name all the news channels that I watch. But I mean, but again, it's he does something that they don't do, but that there's no room for them to do because they can't afford to go to one side or the other. And that is, he gets emotional. And I'm not saying like crying or anything, but he gets emotional when delivering these facts to this person who does not seem to want to listen. And he's not talking about changing the guy's mind. He's talking about listening and understanding the problem at hand, which happens to be gun control. He's not, and John is very smart in the interview in that he's not saying that he's for taking guns away from people. He's for keeping all of them, you know, off the streets in unpermitted hands and such. And I mean, it's just a great interview that really the show should prop itself up on, as opposed to the first segment where it's him kind of delivering jokes and the audience not laughing. Well, I mean, and that's again, I don't say these things to be a slam in this show. It's just something that monologue is missing something. That is missing jokes. Again, no slam. A long time ago, when the problem with Jon Stewart was like Jon Stewart's Apple TV show, and it was announced that he was getting a kind of late night show. This was during the height of the pandemic, rather. And I was a part of an organization that was trying to help people of color and women get writing jobs in the industry. And I was on, and they sent out I don't know if this is, I know it was legit because I do have the emails to prove it. What is it? It was like they sent out kind of like, hey, who's interested in late night writing? And then, a handful of us were like, and then they were like, okay, the show with Jon Stewart on Apple TV Plus, you can they want you to send in packets or whatever. So I sent in a packet. I think it was like a bunch of jokes, and there's a section with a paragraph or something, like why do you, I don't know. Anyway, so I did that, and then a couple weeks later, I didn't get the job. That's all. That's the entire story. Not even the story. It's an anecdote. And then one thing I also want to add about the problem with Jon Stewart is on the YouTube page, they have a podcast, and which I think really helps them when they're off for 8 months of the year. They have a podcast that they upload the videos from, and it's not. It says full episodes on podcasting apps. So I can only assume that these are just segments that are cut out from it. Again, I've never seen it, but they do look like they have a weekly podcast, or at least semi-weekly. This show, I mean, what is there more to say about the problem with Jon Stewart? It's not the most watched show. I do think that the YouTube channel does a lot of the heavy lifting, and the monologue is just something to be desired about that. But the panel segments and the segments that come after the monologue are things that are more important for the show, because he's much better. With The Daily Show, Stewart, and same thing with the Colbert Report, Stewart, and I mean, with all late night hosts, they're all kind of playing these characters. But when you get down to the serious nitty gritty, when you get, that was the dumbest thing I could probably say, but when you get down to the seriousness, when you have Seth Meyers interviewing a writer that he really likes, or when you have Jimmy Fallon, I was going to say talking to his friends, but that's still kind of funny. When you have Colbert talking to a business person, when you have Jon Stewart talking to a senator who is against gun policy reform, there's a code switch back to where they're going from a character who delivered a monologue to a human being having a human conversation, which really pays off for them. And it's not jarring, because the jokes are over, and when it's time for a joke, we know it's time for a joke. But when the audience has to sit there and just take in these people, when they have to take in person A talking to person B, then it really brings home the idea that everybody's human in the end, and these are humans dealing with human problems, and then that can also turn into extraordinary problems. So there's that. Hey, listen, if you like this show, I don't know why you would. Head to cpluscomedy.com, where I talk to your favorite comedians. Next week, we have an interview coming up, and I assume it'll be out next week. I don't know. It might. I mean, it is a... Oh, I won't. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but I am mad at the format it is in, and it was not my choice. You want to see a video version of the show, youtube.com/cpluscomedy, where you can also see video versions of our other shows, other podcasts. The Constitutionals is a entertainment business news podcast where I run through topics, and the LinkedIn Logs, which is a show where I try to become a linked influencer, the number one linked influencer. Both of those are out at this point. If you want to see our premiere show News Time, it's up youtube.com/cpluscomedy. It's like The Daily Show, except way less funny. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok @cpluscomedy. Me on those @Chad Black White. Rate, review, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Tell your friends about it. And I got to get a theme song for this show, because this is the end and we're gone. Bye.